with you. The link is in the chat. And I want to tell you a little bit about, what a course might look like and how you designed one, a equitable and accessible course. And so I am actually going to use guidance that is offered to us by the online course quality review rubric. This is actually a rubric that was developed by SUNY Online and is used by many colleges as part of the consortium, the Online Learning Consortium. It has many categories in course of overview and information, course technology and tools, design and layout. And even though it was specifically designed for online courses, I feel like it's very useful for the design of any courses in any modality. And so I actually recommend it to all professors. The rubric is actually very long. It has all these categories, and it's actually about 50 items. Of course, I won't go through all of them, and you'll have a link to actually take a look at each one of them. Um, One of the items that it specifies is that you should use technology tools that meet accessibility standards. And so for us here at Hunter and at CUNY, if you rely on tools that uh, are sanctioned and actually supported by the college, you're pretty sure that they are okay. So I'm, of course, referring to Brightspace and the Office suite, right? So the Microsoft Office programs, they are accessible. And so unless you use some other tools, you have to vet them, but otherwise, you're pretty sure that they are accessible. Another one of the categories is in the design and layout. And here I pulled out some of the ones that are that the rubric specifies. So you want a logical and consistent and uncluttered layout. You want a course that is easy to navigate. You have large blocks of information divided into manageable chunks. There's enough contrast between the text and the background. It's usually, black and white is good. And you want a text that is formatted with titles and headings and other styles. There's no flashing or blinking text. You use a sans serif font that is large, and sans serif means, these rounded fonts without little feet. Whenever possible, you want to display information in a linear format instead of tables. If you're using slides, you use the predefined layout and use titles, unique titles for every slide. And then for any slideshow, you should have transitions that are not automatic, that you can control. Okay? And so now I want to show you some examples of what they specify. So here, of course, is a Brightspace course, right, with unique titles in the modules. Of course, there are images, but of course, the images are optional. But here's a table of contents that Brightspace already gives you. And so if you make meaningful module titles, you're more likely to have a very accessible course. Here we have an example with a welcome and a syllabus and policies module separated, but then in sequence, the modules for the semester. Here's an example of a module overview with an image and then a big picture, right? So a few sentences about what this module is about, this week is about, and then a list of outcomes, materials, and activities. And then below that, you have a list of all the materials that you would like the students to go through, probably in the right sequence, right, with their proper citations and instructions. This makes a good course. Another piece that I wanted to show you is if you have something that is long, so for example, you have a syllabus that has many, many different components, what you might want to do is actually separate them in chunks that are manageable, right? So this is an accordion tab that can be opened and closed, and so students don't have to scroll very, very long pages to find the information that they want. Here's another example where you have a lot of text. So here it makes sense to have these two tabs because we have etiquette, best practices for online, and then we have synchronous in one tab and asynchronous in another tab. These are based on pages that are pre-made, templated pages on Brightspace that you can make use of. Another example is here when you make pages, okay, you want to make sure that you designate headings and that you use, instead of just bold or different color, that you use these, okay, pre-formatted headings, mark them with styles. You find them in both Brightspace and PowerPoint and Word documents. You can specify that these are headings so that the screen readers can know and can tell the student who has vision issues that these are headings. So here's an example with slides. So in Brightspace, the viewer brings up slides with these headings, actually the slide headings, the slide titles, and it makes it easy to find the slide. And then of course, on the right-hand side, you can page through and find all the slides. So slides with unique titles are important and make part of a accessible course. Under content and activities, whenever possible, open educational resources. You want text that is preferably in HTML because it's more accessible than any PDF. You always want to have a text equivalent or an alt tag or alt text so that the screen reader can read out what is the image. You also want things that are that you don't use text only as a primary method for delivering information. Okay, and then hyperlinks, don't use the word click here and make the link actually write out something meaningful that suggests where that link is going to. Here's an example of in Brightspace, when you're adding an image, it prompts you. It will ask you what the alternative text is, right? So you put it in unless it is a decorative image. And of course, you check this off. In PowerPoint, when you add an image, you can right click and actually put again in this little area, okay, where the alt text would go. Again, it's a description of the image. When you're using image videos, okay, you want to make sure that you click on the little gear, you turn on the captions, and actually review the captions. Many times the platforms will give you automatic captions, but that they're never 100% accurate. You really need to have a person to look at them and make sure that the names of the people, the names of the places, or special lingo that you're using actually is accurate. And so these are all little pieces that will make your course more accessible. And so how do you know? If you're in Brightspace, do you recognize these color gears, these traffic lights? Okay, they appear, okay, right here under next to every item of content that you put in. Okay, so they, of course, appear in different colors and you know what they mean. You can guess what they mean. If you click on the gear, it will give you the accessibility score for one particular piece of content. Okay, so in this one, this was a PDF, and it tells me that it's only 54%, and it gives me a clue as to what to do. Okay, it tells me that the images need description, and it's suggesting that I actually go back to the original, make it accessible, fix it, and then upload it. Okay, so this is something that you can do for your own courses. Take a look at the items, the color items next to each piece of content. Also, in Brightspace, this tool that we call Ally, okay, ALLY, and has an icon of the little A, it also will give you an accessibility report for your entire course. Okay, so that's something that you can do yourself. Open a course, go under tools, run the accessibility report, and it will give you something that kind of looks like this. For your particular course, it will give you a score. Okay, and so I've seen scores that vary a lot. Okay, but I think it's a good guideline to try to get it to up to 80 or 90%. And so the accessibility report, the report tells you the easiest issues to fix, and it will try to help you. Okay, it will try to guide you. And then, of course, there are some that require more work, and that's why we are here to help you. Um, Access, I mean, more on the accessibility tools that Brightspace has. This icon, okay, if you actually click on it, it displays many different ways in which you and your students can download the material. Okay, so there are many alternative formats. So for example, it can give you an audio version. If you're on watching something, you're listening on something on a train, okay, the students can actually download this material and listen to it. There's also a translated version, and there's also an immersive reader. And this is what an immersive reader is about. It would basically read it out loud to you. Okay, it's like a book. And I have here a video to actually let you know that describes how it works. Okay, so you have tools, they are in Brightspace. Okay. The most common issues. Accessibility is a huge topic. I am oversimplifying. I don't want to trivialize it, but there are simple steps that we can follow. And these are the most common issues. Okay, so images and issue and figures don't have descriptions. It's what's called the alt text. Okay, put it in. Every time you have an image, make sure you're describing it. The videos don't have captions, or there's not enough contrast between the background and the foreground of the text. Okay. You have a scanned image. Okay, you have a scanned document. Maybe you own the book and you wanted to share that reading with your students, and you actually went and scanned it. Well, you scanned it as a picture, and they're not real text. Okay, it's not readable, searchable text, and so that needs to be converted, and so that's an issue. um, Also PDFs that are not tagged, or it actually means that the screen reader cannot know whether the titles and the headings in the list are. Okay, those are the most common issues that we want to be aware of and try to fix. And so professors will ask me, can Gen AI help? Well, maybe you can help. You can try. Okay, you can try to use Gen AI tools to generate alt text. You can ask it to transcribe or auto caption the files and audio and video files. You can ask it to propose, ideas for different types of assignments or suggest different activities. But of course, you always, always, always want to double check and rely on your own expertise, because you are the one who knows what's appropriate and what's not for your students, right? Okay, in real life, here's the help. There's us at the center. There's ACERT, of course. The librarians can help you find accessible materials. We have the Office Accessibility, and then the Technology Resource Center and the Help Desk. And so if you actually click on this link, it will take you to our center's site, and we have a page on making course content accessible. Okay, we tell you about the most common issues, and then down below, we have help separated by categories. So if you have content in Brightspace, here is how you run the accessibility report, how you check. Okay, so I won't go through everything. I'll give you time to look at them. Okay, but for Word documents, here's a list of best practices. Here's where you find the accessibility checker, and you have videos. I promise they're very, very short, a couple of minutes. Logan made them to tell you how to add alt text, how to format tables, how to set designate headings. Okay, all quick, uh,
Xiao-Chuan, I think.
accessible format. Okay, all right. I need to wrap up. We have workshops, 4 workshops, one intro and 3 very specific ones on Word, PowerPoint, audio, video. And I want you to develop new habits. Give me 1 more minute to think about this. Okay, before you save, run the accessibility checker in Word and PowerPoint. Before you scan a book, try to find a digital version. After you upload something to Brightspace, see the color gauge. Okay. And after you either choose or upload a video, take a look at the captions. And in every class, tell students about the accessibility features of Ally, that video, because it might help them. It doesn't, make things accessible, but it might be useful for many of your students. Thank you so much. I think our
Thank
next presenter is Kristen.
Yay. Thank you, Shao. There's actually a question for you in the chat. So,
Okay.
yeah, go for it, Kristen. Thank you.
Hi, Gina. Thanks, Xiao. I have a question that I'll get to you. I'll ask in the chat after I'm done. Um, that is a hard act to follow. Okay. So thanks for having me here today. I am a faculty member in the special education department. So we've, considered accessibility as a way of teaching our teachers how to teach students. And we think about what it means for courses to be equitable and designed for all. And there's a lot of different ways that that shows up in special education and in schools. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my course design. and then leave you with places to look if you're interested in seeing it in a larger scale. What I tried to focus on today is beginning with a shift. So like a small step in one direction that could really have an impact on your course and your interactions with your students. A framework that I use to think about accessibility and equitability in my classes is universal design for learning. I use the three principles of universal design for learning. I'm sorry, I'm just jumping around a minute. I use the three principles of universal design for learning to think through how I'm going to plan for the semester. And then once the semester begins, how I'm going to interact with my students. And so I'll talk about all of that in just a moment. Oh, is it not going to let me go back? Oh, there we go. Okay. So one of the things I had mentioned is in designing for UDL, it's something that you do at the start of the course or when you're planning for the course rather than providing an accommodation. And I like the idea of when we're thinking about access, we're not thinking about what we can do for one learner who shows up in our class and needs support in this way. We're thinking about how all learners, for different reasons, can access our material. And so when you think about the students that are sitting in your sections, they're diverse by all kinds of different qualities that make them who they are. And some of the ones are the ones we're aware of. You know, we might have students with disabilities that we would have to accommodate in our class because they have visual or hearing needs, or they have to access learning in a different way, or their attention shows up differently. But we have students who are accessing English in different ways, whether they are still acquiring the spoken language of English, or reading and writing English is a challenge for them, or they speak so many languages that they're constantly translanguaging. We have students who are tight on time, who are commuters, and so they're always in a crunch. And thinking about how we can make our course accessible to them also makes them feel welcome and valued in our space. I share this all the time. I have students that are parents or caregivers, and not only are they working and attending school, but they're loving and caring for other people. And so sometimes they have to access material on the go. And so I always try to think of all of those different qualities when I'm designing my course. And so I'll show you a little bit about how that shows up. So as I mentioned, there are three principles of UDL. These principles can help you get started for sure. If you visit cast.org, you could look at these three principles with a lot more detail. They take these three big ideas and they break them down into considerations. And from the considerations, they also break them down further into guidelines. So you can leave with concrete actions for how you want this to look in your course. What I'm going to talk about today is, what I'm going to talk about today is this middle principle, multiple means of representation. And that focuses on the brain network for the what of learning. And so the reason why I picked that as my focus is I think for like an educator or a professor planning a course, it's a lot more in our wheelhouse. What are we teaching? And what does that look like? And so the way I wanted to show it to you was I took the principle of multiple means of representation. What am I teaching? And you can see here, I have the guideline that aligns with that from CAST. And so the guideline for the first guideline is about perception. And perception means, is my content flexible? And do I offer multiple modalities and perspectives? And so what I did for this, and I will show you where you could access my full syllabus, is I'm just pulling snippets of my syllabus to keep it bite-sized for us, but I will show you where you could look at my whole syllabus or a sample Brightspace course that I designed that might give you some more ideas. So in my syllabus, I have learning tools where readings used to be. And what I found over the years is instead of just offering students readings in my text or through literature that is relevant to the field, I found if I could also offer them video and audio options, it checks a lot of the boxes for those diverse learners I talked about before. So not only does audio make text more accessible for students who may have challenges with reading text, especially text that's tied to a field, or who have difficulties reading a dense text in English because it's not their first language. But when I offer audio or video, it also checks off those boxes of like my busier students. So the students who are commuting and can just plug in an AirPod and listen to an article, or the students who are using the feature that Xiao was showing us with Ally and they're listening. And so sometimes I try to plan with that in mind. And so here's two different ways I use guideline 1 about flexible content and offering multiple modalities. So in this first section, you'll see that in this module or in this session, I do need students to read. And so when I was thinking about the fact that I really couldn't vary this as much as I would like, I thought about, well, what if I layer in some choice? That offers some flexibility where the way I'm presenting material might not. So I am offering all readings, but I'm offering students choice in their reading. And maybe that will tap into an author they like or a topic they're interested in, and they'll be more motivated to read it. Another option, which is a little bit more common when I can get to it, is offering learning tools in each bucket. So here you can see that they're reading our course text. They're also watching a video on vocabulary instruction, but then I also found something that they can listen to in a podcast, and that will provide them with different touch points so they can access the curriculum once we all get to class together. And so that's one example of how I consider multiple means of representation through my syllabus design. And then another option that I like to do is aligned with guideline 2. And so guideline 2, which again focuses on multiple means of representation, really thinks about the way we communicate through languages that provide a shared understanding. And so this guideline is pretty heavy, and I thought it might be helpful for you to see the considerations that break it down further. There are 5 of them. I only pulled 3 of them for us to talk about. So here you can see we're clarifying vocabulary, we're addressing biases, and we're illustrating through multiple media. And so what I took for this one is the learning objectives for a session, and thinking about how I design my learning objectives so that I'm addressing these big ideas for language and symbols in my course. And so I'm always trying to make sure that I explain concepts that I'm using that might be new to the students. So in this session, you'll see 2 learning objectives where I'm specifically going to unpack vocabulary that's related to their field. And then another thing that I did where we lean into this idea of a shared understanding is we begin this session by identifying our initial goals for course engagement. And so in this course, we have an expectation that we are all engaging in the course content. But I thought it was pretty important for us to figure out what engagement looks like in our different groups. And so whether my students are attending class, sorry, I just lost my share.
We can still see it.
Oh, you can? Okay, well, I can't.
Now it's stopped. Yeah.
Okay, let me just try to grab it on my screen one more time. So sorry. You can see it?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. So whether my students are, attending class as a first generation college student, or they're showing up for class and they know that, they don't prefer to engage in discussions, or whether they're really busy and they didn't do the pre-class reading. Together, when they sit in a group, they can define for themselves how they believe they show up for class. And so what I like about this is it surfaces a lot of conversation around what it means to engage in course content at the college level. And so that is an example of a learning objective that just starts to work through some shared understanding of what it means to be in a course together. The third principle, or the third guideline that relates to multiple means of representation, is this idea of constructing meaning and generating new understanding. And so for this one, I also listed the considerations because as the understandings get more abstract, building knowledge, what does that mean? I wanted to give some more details so you understand what that could look like in a classroom. And so here we're talking about connecting prior knowledge. And so the course that I was designing for is a literacy course. And one of their first assignments is called Growing a Reader, My Literacy Story. And so this is a wonderful assignment for me because it teaches me so much about how they learn to read, and what their feelings are about reading. And it gives me a lot of insight into how they approach the course. But I also make sure that if I'm thinking about this shared understanding that I want us to have, they share this presentation as part of a small group. So their peers are going to learn about them through their literacy story. And so here I'm highlighting the idea of, what it means to be in a space together where we all didn't learn the same way. And how do we build relationships that help us learn together? And so another one of the considerations here is making sure that we cultivate multiple ways of knowing and making meaning, and that we maximize transfer and generalization. And so when I think about the idea of we're all in this course to learn about different ways that we teach reading, and what better way to do that by then first unpacking how we learn to read and how that plays into how we may consider teaching reading. I thought what would be best for this is layering in some more choice. And so because this assignment is structured and everybody is kind of sharing their story, that's the requirement of the assignment. I thought a choice for how they would share that story could really speak to who they are as both a student and a person. And so students can create a video that they play ahead of time. They can create audio so that their presentation is either shared live from them in class or something they pre-record and play. They have, of course, allowed to write their response. And then we also have this newer format that we've tried recently called a mind map, where they create a presentation that is both visual and includes text to kind of support their images, and they get to walk their small group through their story. And so when I think about the shift for where you get started, I would suggest beginning with UDL and thinking through one of the principles and just picking one and kind of starting there with your planning. And giving yourself grace, knowing that it is a work in progress. And every time you do one thing, it will benefit your learners. And it's just the first step for you to build on as you continue. And if the principles of UDL feel big and something you're not yet ready to tackle, like maybe that's a future goal, my biggest suggestion would be to incorporate choice. And there's a lot of different ways to incorporate choice, and I've added those on the screen. Choice really allows the learner to show up in a way that they feel is representative of who they are and what they're interested in and how they learn. And so offering multiple reading options, offering assignment choices, offering options for how they submit their assignment, offering choice of questions, whether it's through discussion or assessment. And then, of course, if they're doing some research, offering the choice of topic selection is another way to make your learning more accessible for your students. And I'm going to stop there.
Amazing. Thank you. Put your questions in the chat for Kristen. So excited. Thank you. Bridget, go for it.
Okay, let me first share my screen. Let's see where I am. Hang on. Let me see if I can find my... One second. I have so much stuff open. Okay, let me... Now I got it. Hang on. Okay, now I can share. I got the right window now. Okay. All right. So my name is Bridget Trusty. I am faculty here at Hunter College. I'm in the economics department. Um, Briefly, my background is I am alumni at Hunter College. I graduated back in 1990. When I started teaching here 2.5 years ago, I basically was taught by one of my professors that taught me way back in 1990. So I had the privilege of teaching with him for 2 semesters before he retired. And then I inherited all of his courses. I think he deliberately did that to me. He poached me into coming here, which was fine with me. I love it anyway. But I'll tell you, he's the reason why I decided to get into taxes. My background is I have a BS in accounting and I have a master's in taxation. So I teach in the accounting department. I teach personal and business taxes. This is my module, as you can see here from our course, our module making course. And I've heard a lot in the last half hour about accessibility as far as the students and also engagement. My major concern in the classroom is whether the students are engaged. Um, Especially if you have times where you're online with the students, okay? A student can join and disappear. I hate to say that, but these things happen. So how do you devise or create content on your class page that will keep the student engaged? And when I started the module making for this course, I had been using Brightspace for 2 years, but using it is not the same as, actually taking advantage of a lot of the content that is there. So what I did was my focus was, and I heard Shun talk about accessibility. Well, if I'll show you here with my page here, I like to my students will tell you I like to repeat over and over. A lot of us learn by repetition. Okay. So in my syllabus and also in my overview here, I talk about what federal income taxation is, and I stress the learning outcomes for them to read. Okay. Because at this point, I'm assuming they haven't read anything yet in the syllabus. Okay. I've had, I talk about the learning materials. And then in this week 1, I created what's known as a pre-knowledge discussion. And one of the other things that I did that I learned in the module making was, with pre-knowledge discussion, it opens up the opportunity for students to go anywhere and find out that correct answer. Okay. But I'm not looking for a textbook answer. I'm looking for them to tell me what they think before we even get into content. So what I learned here, and you'll see in these two, there's a tax formula here. There's also a PowerPoint presentation that talks about the individual income tax formula. What I did before they get to those 2 items is I set conditions. Okay. So they have to discuss with me and with the group what what they think about how much tax do I owe and what that means to them before these items can be released. Okay. I told them, I don't want a textbook answer. Tell me what you think. This is pre-knowledge. I'm not testing you. Talk to me. Tell me what you think. Okay. And many of them had not been exposed to these types of activities and things within Brightspace. They didn't know that once they do this discussion, and they complete it by manually saying they completed it, that it released these items for them to see because they can't see these until they're done with this. Okay. One other thing I love, I'm going to be, and I incorporated it this semester with the syllabus, is I want them to do a hypothesis assignment. This tells me instead of them just signing a piece of paper that they acknowledge that they have the syllabus, they have to annotate the syllabus. They have to actually go in and read it, and they have to give either 2 annotations. They have to comment on a classmate's annotation. That's another option. Or they can be even more creative and put a video in. Okay, that's their option. But I assumed with this that nobody had used hypothesis before, and my assumptions were correct here. Okay, so what I did is I explained here what's happening here, why I'm doing this, what's the purpose of annotating the syllabus. Okay. If they don't know how to do it, here's a guide for them. Okay. Just like we're learning these tools, some of them have never used it and they're learning it too. So we have to kind of give them a little bit of time and be patient with them and show them how to do it. Okay. Different suggestions here with how they can annotate the syllabus. Okay. And then specifically how to post it. Okay. I'm not leaving anything to chance here. I'm assuming, like I said, that they are using this for the first time, just like I am. Okay. And many of them came up to me after they saw this and they're like, we never used this before. Never used it before. And the tools are there for us, but they're not using it. Um, Also, with the accessibility for some of my documents, you'll also notice that I got my greens here. Okay. When I first started building, and I was always before the module making, why is this red? This is driving me crazy. I got to get rid of this red. This means something's wrong. How do you fix this? And thank goodness for the team that taught us with the module making camp, because now before I upload anything, my documents, my PDFs, I know how to format my Word documents properly based on the instructions. I know how to format and do my auto tags for my PDFs. So I get greens all the time now. I'm so happy about that. So now I know for a fact that everything that I upload now is accessible to all of my students. Okay. I do have, just like all of us, we have students in our class that are registered with accessibility. What does that mean? That means that they have to be able to see it, they have to be able to understand and be able to grab that material the best way that they can. And they need to be able to have those options. And those two things were very, very important to me. A key takeaway with me with this is, and I know we all feel this way, we are bombarded every day with tools for everything. It's unbelievable. You open up all of your, whatever your social media accounts, or somebody's trying to throw something in your face, okay, about what you should be using, what tools you should be using. One size does not fit all. Okay. I got a lot from the module making, but there are a bunch of tools that I really don't plan to use right now. It doesn't fit for me right now. But something like hypothesis, I'm just introducing one thing at a time, okay? Because think about it, if we're overwhelmed with all of these tools, so are the students, okay? We have to be patient with them. We have to learn it and we have to understand and make sure that these tools are right for us with the content we're teaching, okay? We're the pilots. I heard someone tell me this with AI in education. We are the pilots. It's not teaching for us. That doesn't take us away from the educational process. But these tools are there to help us to be able to teach and make the learning experience the best that we can for the students. Okay. So I appreciate everyone listening. Okay. Oh, Shao, you have a question?
We were clapping for you. Thank you so much, Bridget. There's a couple of comments like well, as you're going through. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Amazing. Larry.
Larry, I'm from Classics. So I have to share, right? This is and I'm gonna set a timer, right? 8 minutes, you said? Does that have it? Sorry. Give me
You
a
are
second
good.
here. Share. Let's see here. Share. We can see. You don't want to share that or that. So you can see my screen here. Okay. So hi, I'm Larry Kowerski. I'm from Classics. And I was asked to share. I'm not entirely sure what what I would have to share with you, but I'd first like to just say that everything I know about any of this goes back to uh, the online or whatever you're called now, CD, whatever you want. It goes back to everything. So I highly recommend, and I would say go to Xiao, go to any of those people. And if you go to Justin, just beware you're going to be working with VoiceThread. So if you don't want to work with VoiceThread, don't go to Justin. That's it. But you'll see. So when I was thinking about accessibility and equitable course structure, I wasn't really exactly sure if I fit into this category, but I thought about it, and I thought the way I would do what I recently did was this course, and the course that I got a great deal of help with. And again, I'd like to shout out Justin because this is just as much of his project as it is mine. Was I did a Greek civilization course here, and let me just go to the course home here. It's an asynchronous course. It's a 200 level course. It was large. It was 70 students. Normally it's a 35. It doubled, but it could scale up, and it serves both majors and a college-wide requirement course. So people take it for world cultures. It was a W course and P&D. So it pulls in all of these people. So this is what we're dealing with. And so I took this on and I thought uh, what we do. So when I thought about equity and accessibility, and so I'm a little less theoretical than some of the things that I've been thinking about. What I started to think about was how I made my content equitable and accessible. So right, you've all heard, right? It's all Greek to me, right? And these types of things. And so how do I make this accessible to students who have no idea what we're are sort of talking about? So yes, I can go and I've done all of the things and I've tried, and I'm not entirely sure I did so well on this course, but yes, I add all the tags and all of these things, and that's all a work in process. But I also have this content that I need to convey, and what what I'm guilty of is I like to shove a lot of content down the throat of students without really thinking about anything else. And so that's one of the things that I was really thinking about in this term. How do I get away from some of that? So one of the things I did is that I focused on a bunch of things. So let me just run through what I came up with for you. So one of the things I focused on was I focused on tracking down and readings for them rather than saying, here are some books, go get them, go do them. I tracked down the readings and I largely provided readings for them. And let me just get you here for example. I had them I provided the readings, or I found the readings at the library and I gave them the links to them. So rather than just say, here the reading, or here's the reading in the library, or go find it, I gave it to them. The other thing that I did, and I heard about this idea of choice. So one of the things in with the content that I have is that much of the literature that I provide to them it was originally oral literature, so it was performed. So I gave them the opportunity to either read or to watch, and I provided. And I'm looking. I have my I have my things here, and it's not working out for me. Oh, here we go. I gave them the option to either watch or to read. So I would give them the link to the library, or I would give them the option to read. So here Xiao was pointing out the sort of tab things, and this is the things that I was doing, and I did these things. Okay, so this is the type of thing that I did to create this kind of accessibility. And so I was glad to hear earlier about the choice, and that's one of the things I was leaning into with these things. But this isn't quite where I started. The one thing I wanted to talk about is that I know how to read and I know how to listen and I know how to talk about these things, but the students don't. So one of the things I did, Justin introduced me to VoiceThread. Okay. And I want to go back here and show you. The place I like to start all of my courses, or many of my courses, is we like to read a poem by Kowerski called Ithaca. And it's really all about a journey, and it talks about journey, learning as a journey. And so what I did is I presented them with the content right here. So I gave them a voice thread where I had me talking here. I'm not going to run you through them. And then I talked to them, and then I asked them to read the poem. And I put the poem here. I gave them a copy of the poem, and I asked them to read it. Then I asked them all to listen to the poem, right? And then I gave them me talking more about it, and I walked them through reading the poem with me. And then I asked them to do certain tasks about pointing, and they gave me they didn't do it perfectly, but they did certain things, and I gave them things to say, well, now tell me what you think about this poem. So I kind of tried to, in an asynchronous way, walk them through reading a poem in a way I would do in the classroom. Okay. And so these are the kinds of things. So rather than just giving them the choice, right, and say, oh, now you have choice, I try to give them the choice, but also show them what to do with the choice. That's one of the options I did with my asynchronous thing. The other things that I've done. Sorry, I don't mean to jump through, but I just wanted to, I'm trying to jump through. The other things that I've done is I tried to interlace content with optional material to create sort of both interest and community. And this is the one other thing that I wanted to sort of talk about, creating community. Let me go back here. So for example, let me come here to content. Sorry. Blah, blah, blah. So I would start off each module. Each module was predictably the same length content. It had the same content, 10 parts of non-optional material, and it started with a thing that would get in the mood to learn. And this one was get in the mood with something about ancient computers, and this would often have to do with the content of the module. Sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it had to do with how to make a perfect cup of coffee. But it was something to sort of create this sort of sense that we're in this together. And you would go through the class, you would have that, and then it would end with something to sort of wrap things up. You would have a mid-module break. This time I had something to do with each one of these mid-module breaks had something to do with breaking. I don't know why. Just something I did. And then at the end, it would have something to do not with the class, but with the class, and it was sneaky. So here, there was something on YouTube on how to write lyrics. So, and we were reading lyric poems here. And so I would do these things, and I found that in these surveys that I did, and you can see it here, the students liked these things. And ultimately, what ended up happening with this is that it created community. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to say about these things, because I think I'm running out of time here, is that some of these things were kind of sneaky in a way. So I won't go through and show, but some of these end ones were I there are these random people on YouTube who will walk around their boroughs in, say, the Bronx and go on, give you tours of the Bronx, right? Or Brooklyn for like an hour. And it is fabulous, right? And I don't sit and watch, but the theme of this course is individual and community. And so how community helps to create how the individual and community help to create identity in ancient Greece. So I would do certain things like this, and hoping that some of these kids would start to see the connection between their community and their identity. And then I would get them onto, and whether they watch these things or not, I don't know. But what they did do is then I would send them and I'd say, tell me about your community. And they would create these wonderful voice threads that would show me their communities. And they would start to talk about how their community created their identity. And then they would start to create these connections to what I was talking about and how Achilles and about Odysseus and about, I don't know, Pericles. And it was this really fabulous connection. And so doing these little things that took me forever and all these things that created these connections, it created this ability for me to create this accessible content. And I think created equity for these students who were from all over the world. And they created these types of things. So what did I get? I'm sorry. I know I've run over, but I just wanted to say the results were it created a real sense of community. It created better projects and midterms that showed a better result, better grasp of the material. And ultimately, what it did is it showed a happier professor, right? I can, and the things that I got to see, I mean, I spent hours watching these videos more than I spent reading these exams and stuff. I mean, I learned a lot about these kids, and I just loved it. And it was fun. Um, anyway, sorry, I know I went over, but that's okay. Sorry.
The best, the best. So brilliant, everybody. You are all incredible. Thank you. Thank you. All right, questions for Larry in the chat, and then Zalman, go for it. We're so excited. You're going to close us out.
Sure. So we don't have much time, which is fine because most of the speakers who preceded me did an amazing job of giving us so much information and things to think about. The first thing I'll just say, so my name is Zalman Newfield. I'm in the sociology department and I teach courses in sociology and Jewish studies here at Hunter. And I was thinking, well, what could I convey to the group today? And the first thing is really, I'm kind of chuckling at myself that I'm here speaking about this topic because I am truly a Luddite, and I am. It's not that I'm anti-technology; it's that I'm clueless about technology, and so. I feel like whatever I was able to pull together, in part certainly through the tremendous effort of Justin, who's really a magic man. But also some things I worked on before that. It just shows that really anyone could do this. That at least on some level, in some way, as we heard from Bridget and others, if you start with something, you do something, you get used to. Some piece of technology or doing something in a kind of new way, you could ultimately make it your own and incorporate it into your course and have a lot of success with that. So I want to just share, let's see where we are. I think this should work. No, where are we? 1 second. Okay. So here is my Sociology 101 asynchronous course. And much of, again, the really key points have already been noted, but I'll just touch on them that I think maybe most people do this, but it seems like maybe not everyone designs their online course using the module system so that there's different sections or weeks for the material. And I know I've heard from students who are taking other courses that they sometimes found the courses very confusing because there was different material in different places, in different folders, things would get lost. And to go back to a point that was already made by some of the other speakers, when we think about accessibility and equity with education, it's best not to think about, oh, there's this one student or several students in my class that may have some issues and we want to, be, kind and help them. And instead think about how to create a course that's really in the best shape it could be so that everyone is able to access it and benefit from it. And so I think that the issue of clarity is really important, that when you set up the course, you really want it to be as clear as possible. I know as a writer, you think about academic scholarship or writing in general, and you think about who's your audience and, a particular a turn of phrase, how it might be perceived by different people in a different way. And you think, well, maybe I should really scratch that phrase or that word might not be understood in the way I intend it to be understood. And you can't really always anticipate every reader and who's going to, be tackling what you write. And I think there's a similar kind of dynamic when it comes to creating courses, especially online asynchronous courses. We really don't know, every student who's going to be there, what their background is, what their challenges are. And so we want to focus as much as possible on clarity. And I think using the modular system where all of the content for a given week or period is in one place and you're able to go through it very clearly, very systematically, so that it's accessible to everyone. That really helps. And also, as we've already heard from some other people, I think the issue of engagement, I mean, obviously it's important in our classrooms. We want to engage the students, but I think especially online, especially asynchronous courses, people are literally and figuratively in all different places, and we want to try to kind of pull them in and make the material as exciting as possible. Obviously, personalizing courses, as others have done, putting pictures, maybe, some kind of quirky thing, something that will get students' attention, a cartoon you find online that appeals to you, heck, it might appeal to other people as well. And also the idea of activities, not just putting the material, especially written material, which has all sorts of issues about visual issues, people are able to, read it and so on. But it could also be boring sometimes. But to include videos of yourself, videos of other speakers. I occasionally use little comedy sketches I find online that relate to the topic, like code switching or some other topic that we want to cover in the class. And also activities that students could engage in, like little surveys that they're able to use that relate to the topic, even if you think, well, not every single part of that survey is exactly what I would say as a professor or whatever, and perfectly in line with my course, but you cover, it relates to it enough so that it brings the content alive and makes everyone feel connected to the course and excited to continue learning in the course. I'll stop there. Thank you all so much.
Yay, incredible. I love that this wasn't like just about accessible and equitable courses, but also about how amazing Hunter is and all the incredible faculty we have that are showcasing this. So we're so incredibly grateful for you all. Center for Online Learning, and you are the best of the best, as you can see. Incredible, incredible work, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Come to our, yeah, join Hunter Writes, join all of the ACERT things. We're so, so happy and proud of all of you. Take good care. Have a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday and a beautiful week. Thank you, everybody. So grateful.